Brought to you by 4D Termination Incorporated, empowering non-custodial parents and strengthening families. Brought to you by 4D Termination Incorporated, Educational Information Services, the non-custodial advocates. The information contained in this video is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice on any subject matter. This video is going to be called Unmasking the Villain. We're going to discuss how the Child Support Agency is single and separate from the state of Oklahoma.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo!
Look at this snapshot. Here's a clue to end all clues. Take a look at our ape man.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We got some work to do now. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We need some help from you now. Come on, Scooby-Doo, I see you, pretending you got silver. You're not fooling me, 'cause I can see the way you shake and shiver. You know we got a mystery to solve, so Scooby-Doo, be ready for your act. Don't hold back. And Scooby-Doo, if you come through, you're gonna have yourself a Scooby snack. That's a fact. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, here are you. You're ready and you're willing. If we can count on you, Scooby-Doo, I know you'll catch that villain.
First, you have to understand that child support matters fall under civil law and not criminal law. Child support matters are civil law matters and not criminal law matters, which is why we are required to compensate the plaintiff, who is the state of Oklahoma. We are not supposed to be jailed for the inability to make child support payments. But that is another discussion for another video. Right now, we're going to focus on separating the Child Support Agency from the state of Oklahoma. So what is civil law? Civil law is private law. Civil law, which is also known as private law, regulates disputes between private individuals. Disputes between private individuals, such as family law matters, such as child support. Someone made a complaint against you, and it was the Child Support Agency. Private law is a part of a civil legal system that involves relationships between individuals, such as a law of contracts or torts. So when you have private law, you have contract law that falls under it. And you also have family law that falls under it, which child support falls under itself. For a child support case to exist, you must agree to it. Your 4D child support case starts from you signing a voluntary contract. Contract. What contract? The personal responsibility contract signed by the non-custodial parent, required as procedural process to establish a 4D child support case that is under the Title 4A of the Social Security Act, which is better known as TANF. You can find a description of this personal responsibility contract in 42 subsection 603 5C3. So let's go ahead and take a look at this citation and see what it really says. Title 42, the Public Health and Welfare, Chapter 7, Social Security, Subchapter 4, grants to states for aid and services to needy families with children and for child welfare services. Part A, block grants to states for temporary assistance for needy families. Section 603, grants to states. Section 603(5)(3), non-custodial parents, says that states may use the funds to provide services in a form described in Clause I to non-custodial parents with respect to whom the requirements of the following subclauses are met. Scrolling down, we're going to take a look at 3. In the case of a non-custodial parent who becomes enrolled in the project on or after November 29th, 1999, the non-custodial parent is in compliance with the terms of an oral or written personal responsibility contract. So right under 3, we're going to take a look at these 4 sections, which is AA, BB, CC, and DD. Now, they all describe a commitment by the non-custodial parent to cooperate, but we're going to focus on BB. BB states, a commitment by the non-custodial parent to cooperate in the payment of child support for the minor child. Before child support can start taking your paychecks, you must make a commitment to cooperate for their services. This commitment to child support services is completely voluntary and in no way, shape, form, or fashion mandatory by the state. So when do we sign this voluntary contract for child support services? First, they send you a notice to take a paternity test with the child support agency. Before they can even give you this contract to sign, they have to establish paternity and find you as the legal father first. So you go in, you take a paternity test, you wait about 6 months for the paternity test results to come back, and if you are found to be the father, they are going to give you this documentation: the order for determining parentage and child support obligation. Child support obligation. What's an obligation legally? An obligation is a duty to perform a certain act which arises from a contract. The child support obligation is considered as a conditional obligation, which means the duty to pay or perform certain acts depending on the happening of an event. So once you sign that personal responsibility contract, you now have an obligation to make child support payments. So the child support obligation is a voluntary contract. What is a contract? What makes this contract valid and legally enforceable? You have to understand that all contracts fall under contract law. Contract law is an area of the United States law that involves agreements between people, businesses, and groups. When someone does not follow an agreement, it's called a breach of contract, and contract laws allow you to take the problem to court. So if you start out with your child support case with retroactive payments that are more than $150, they will file a motion with the district court to enforce payments from you and place a lien on what is supposed to be your personal and real property. Without that lien in place, they cannot legally garnish your wages or your tax refunds. So we've discussed the obligation and we discussed contract law, but what is a contract? A contract is an agreement between private parties creating mutual obligations enforceable by law. The basic elements required for the agreement to be a legally enforceable contract are mutual assent expressed by a valid offer and acceptance, adequate consideration, capacity, and legality. So let's go over the 5 elements of a contract that make that contract valid and legally enforceable. They have to make an offer of child support services to you. You have to accept that offer, and the offer has to be in consideration for your interest. The duties cannot be illegal, and you must have the capacity to sign the contract. So the offer, the acceptance, and the consideration are 3 elements that are required for this contract to be valid and legally enforceable. If the duties that are set for the contract to be completed are not legal, or if the person signing the contract does not have the mental capacity to sign a contract, then that can render the contract void, meaning that the contract is invalid and not legally enforceable. So it starts with the offer, and an offer is a verbal or written promise to take some action or to refrain from acting in exchange for a set of agreed upon terms. Verbal offers can be difficult to prove if the situation gives rise to a court case. This method of contracting should be avoided when possible. The offer for child support services is a written offer, which is why I showed you the document for the child support obligation. The second step is acceptance. Says that the acceptance from us should be in writing, so that way the acceptance is clear. The third is consideration. They have to take into consideration of the duties that they are offering you to do, and you must take into consideration if you are able to do these things or not. And if you're not able to do these duties, then you can simply say no and deny the offer. The next thing is mutuality of obligation. Says here that your personal responsibility contract is a binding agreement between you and the child support agency. And again, this is a voluntary agreement, and if you do not choose to accept the offer, then you can deny it with no legal consequences coming to you. The last element is capacity. The contract requires that each party be legally competent to have the capacity to agree to the terms. Minors and people with limited mental capacity are not considered competent. So that means a child or an adult who is developmentally disabled cannot sign a contract. So what makes contracts unenforceable? A void contract. And what is a void contract? So a void contract is a contract that isn't legally enforceable starting from the time that it was created. So a void contract is treated as if it was never created and becomes unenforceable in court. So if your contract is missing one of the first 3 elements, then your contract is void. So how do I know if I have a void contract? What are the grounds for a void contract? Here we have what to watch out for that would make your contract void. Since a contract is a legally binding agreement, in the typical scenario, once you enter into a contract with another person, you and the other party are both expected to fulfill the terms of the contract, but it's possible for a valid contract to be found unenforceable in the eyes of the law, and this article looks at some common situations where that might be the case. So the first thing we're going to look at is the lack of capacity. As we discussed earlier, lack of capacity means a minor or a person who is developmentally disabled. These people do not have the capacity to contract. Therefore, their signature on a contract is void. Scrolling down, we come across three more, which are duress and undue influence and misrepresentation. Now, we've already discussed duress and undue influence, but let's talk about misrepresentation. If the other person is pretending to be something that they are not to get you to sign this voluntary contract, then this counts as misrepresentation. So let's just say that the child support agency is not the state and they are acting as part of the state to get you to sign this voluntary contract, which is being perceived to you as a state document, which is mandatory. That would be considered as misrepresentation. But that's just hypothetically speaking if the 4D agency was a single and separate unit from the state. Or are they? So the last one that we're going to talk about is non-disclosure. We're going to use a child support scenario for this. So let's say that the child support agency is giving you an offer for child support services. They tell you who they are and what their services are, but they do not give you a disclosure as to what could happen if you do not follow your duties for the program. If they didn't tell you that they were going to garnish your checks, and if they didn't tell you that they were going to take your tax refunds, then there is a non-disclosure problem, and that contract would be considered void. If they didn't tell you that they could potentially throw you in jail, and if they didn't tell you that they were going to take your driver's licenses, and if they didn't tell you that they were going to take your business licenses, then that is an example of non-disclosure, and your contract would be considered void and unenforceable. Now we're going to talk about what duress and undue influence is. These are two separate terms that have two separate meanings. However, I'm sure, if not all of you, most of you have signed this personal responsibility contract, and that was under duress and undue influence. Since they told you the full terms and conditions, do you want to sign this contract? Of course not. But because they're acting as state employees and telling you this is a court order by the state of Oklahoma and that it's mandatory, sure, you'll sign it. But the question is, were you willing? Of course not. So therefore, the contract was signed under duress. And because they were acting as the state, that is considered undue influence. They took advantage of you through the position of the state of Oklahoma in the formation of a contract. That's undue influence. So now you have to ask yourself, did the child support agency tell you that it was a voluntary contract for child support services? Or did they tell you that it was a state of Oklahoma court order that was mandatory because you have a duty to pay child support? When they were giving you the offer of child support services, did they tell you the full terms and conditions of the program? Did they also tell you that they are not a state agency and that they are single and separate from the state of Oklahoma and that their services are not state services and that their program was also not the state of Oklahoma? So let's say that you answered yes to the first three questions. Did you sign this contract voluntarily with free will and consent, free from undue influence, coercion, and under duress? Well, if so, you already knew all of this information, and it was presented to you, and your contract is valid and legally enforceable. Congratulations. You have a legal duty to child support. However, on the other hand, like the majority of the rest of us who were not married, we were not aware, and a vast majority of us still don't know. Well, in our situation, these services were brought to us as state services, and the people who brought these services to us were claiming to be state employees, saying the voluntary contract is a mandatory court order and by not signing would cause legal consequences, forcing us to sign. Would that not be undue influence? Wouldn't that not be coercion? Are those not verbal threats? Would that not be under duress? Where is your 14th Amendment right to procedural due process in all of this? But isn't this acting under color of law? So what is acting under color of law? Section 242 of Title 18 makes it a crime for a person to act under color of law to willfully deprive a person of a right or privilege protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States. The Child Support Agency had acted under color of law by acting as the state of Oklahoma to deprive your right of your 14th Amendment right to procedural due process. This is also misrepresentation. Misrepresentation is also considered fraud. Fraud because you're deceiving a person. Okay, so wait. You're making claims that the employees for the Child Support Agency in Oklahoma are not employees of the state of Oklahoma. You're also saying, by doing so, they are acting under color of law, which is a violation. Man, this sounds too good to be true. Can you prove it? Well, yes, I would be glad to. So what we're looking at here is the website for Systems and Methods Incorporated, which is also known as SMI. They supply the state of Oklahoma with child support services, and they also do payment processing services for our child support payments here in the state of Oklahoma. Child support services constitute over 92% of their business. For you guys watching who are not in Oklahoma, they also contract with 14 other states here in the United States for child support services and payment processing services. Child support services in Oklahoma belong to Systems and Methods Incorporated. So what's the deal with the payment processing services? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. So if you look in the first bubble where it says payment processing, it says that their cutting-edge child support payment processing and disbursement solutions have been developed from decades of experience responding to their customers' needs. Customers being the state being the state of Oklahoma. So in the second box where it says how our payment processing works, we're going to look at the bottom paragraph. It says that each of our state disbursement units, which are the SDUs, is set up and customized according to the legal and logistical needs of the state. The Oklahoma Centralized Support Registry is the SDU that is designed and operated and employed by Systems and Methods Incorporated. That is not a state agency, and it is a private debt collection agency. How sure am I that this is a private company? Well, let's look at their people. Here, we're looking at the very bottom where it says a private company. And it states that as a private company, Systems and Methods Incorporated is unencumbered by this corporate red tape that their competitors so often deal with. These guys are clearly admitting that they are a private company. These guys are not of the state. They are not part of any branch of government. So now that we know that child support services are private services that are not of the state or any branch of government, How can we be sure that they are affiliated with the state of Oklahoma? Well, that's easy. We just need to take a look at their history. So when you get to the history page, you need to scroll all the way down to 2012. 2012 is the year that they contracted with the state of Oklahoma to provide the state of Oklahoma with child support payment services. So at the bottom of the page, it states that their contracts from 1976 to 2016, except for food stamps, are still in place till this very day. This webpage was updated in 2021. Systems and Methods Incorporated is also a vendor supplier of these private child support services. These private child support services are up for rent to states and are offered to and sold to states for a certain term or set time frame. To seal the deal, states enter and sign into a private legal binding contract to use child support services for the public. This transaction is processed and accomplished through the online bidding process, and that starts with Oklahoma submitting a request for proposal, or what's also known as an RFP. So what is a request for proposal? So a request for proposal is a business document that announces and provides details about a project as well as solicits bids from contractors who will help complete the project. That project with the state of Oklahoma would be child support services. So where is this request for proposal from the state of Oklahoma with Systems and Methods Incorporated for child support services and payment processing services? It sits with the Office of Management and Enterprise Services here in the state of Oklahoma. The solicitation number for that is 8300001161. The solicitation date for this is February 6th, 2019. This is the RFP. So let's take a look at the brief description of requirement. The Office of Management and Enterprise Services, on behalf of the Oklahoma Department of Human Services, Child Support Services, to secure a contract to maintain the Oklahoma Centralized Support Registry, which is also known as the State Recipient Unit, SDU. Still not enough evidence for you? Well, how about the actual contract between SMI and the state of Oklahoma? This is the physical contract for the state of Oklahoma and Systems and Methods Incorporated for child support services here in the state of Oklahoma, as well as child support payment processing. This contract is good for the next 5 years. Says this contract is good since December 1st, 2019 until November 30th of 2026. They rented child support services and payment processing services at a cost of 59 cents per year. So who else is under this private child support services contract? Well, the District Attorney's Council is. Says here that 9 district attorneys contract with DHS to provide these services, verbatim. It also says that the District Attorney's Council assists in the administration of these cooperative agreements. So even they know that the personal responsibility contract exists because they're calling it a cooperative agreement. It's all about the words and the definitions of the words that they use. You have to learn to watch out for the words that they use and what they really mean by these words. So what does this information mean for us? Well, it means that our judges, our district attorneys, our family law attorneys, our court clerks, and our sheriffs are all privately contracted to provide these private services. They are only private contractors / employees of Systems and Methods Incorporated when they are handling 4D child support matters, not employees of the state of Oklahoma. Once again, they are not the state. They are a single and separate unit, single and separate from the state of Oklahoma. So let's go ahead and talk more about what that means. So we're going to look at federal citation. 45 Code of Federal Regulations, subsection 302.12, single and separate organizational unit. This is the part of the statute that we're going to be focusing on, which is A, 1, and I. Says the state plan shall provide for the establishment or designation of a single and separate organizational unit to administer the 4D plan. Such unit is referred to as the 4D agency. Under this requirement, the 4D agency may be located in any other agency of the state, which is why the 4D agency in Oklahoma is located in the Department of Human Services, which is a state agency. The Child Support Agency, which is referred to as the 4D agency in this citation, is single and separate from the state of Oklahoma. They operate in the state agency, but they are a single and separate organizational unit. Child support services in Oklahoma are not a program or services of the state of Oklahoma, nor are their employees employed with the state of Oklahoma. Just as I said about our judicial employees, when they are handling these 4D child support matters, they are no longer judicial employees of the state because they are providing services for a private company, which means they are employees of Systems and Methods Incorporated while they are handling these 4D child support cases. We have proven, with legal citation, these people not to be employees of the state. Therefore, when these people are acting as state employees to administer and enforce these private services, they are acting under color of law. So now let's dig a little deeper into proving how they are acting under color of law. So we're going to take a look at 45 CFR subsection 302.32, which states the 4D agency must establish and operate a state disbursement unit, which is the SDU, for the collection and disbursement of payments that are under child support orders. Here is a copy of this legal citation that specifically states exactly what I just mentioned. So the 4D agency establishes and operates the SDU according to federal regulation 45 CFR subsection 302.32. But who is the subsection 302.32 4D agency who establishes and operates the SDU? Taking a look at the website of SMI, we're going to focus on the lower half of this passage, which states that their cutting-edge child support payment processing and disbursement solutions, they specified as their processing payment and disbursement unit as their solution. And here it is again. It says that each of their state disbursement units, SDU, is set up and customized according to the legal and logistical needs of the state. So here they are again claiming ownership of the SDU, which is also known as the Central Support Registry. So third time is a charm. Let's go ahead and look at the bottom passage of a focused approach. This means we have taken a focused approach combining the state-of-art technology, highly trained professionals, and committed leadership to develop cost-efficient SDU solutions that are second to none. Here is SMI yet again for a third time claiming ownership of their SDUs. So if all of this is true, and the Oklahoma Central Support Registry is really established, owned, and operated by Systems and Methods Incorporated, then prove it. Show me the SDU that is owned and operated by Systems and Methods Incorporated and located in the state of Oklahoma. Not a problem. Let me go ahead and show you. Looking at the child support website, they have an address, but it is a P.O. box for the Oklahoma Centralized Support Registry. When you call Child Support Services and you ask them for the mailing address, they're going to give you this P.O. box address. They do not have a phone number for this establishment either. They do not like to expose this business to the public. They use a P.O. box address to hide their real identity of the people who are handling our child support payments in Oklahoma. So the SDU that is owned by Systems and Methods Incorporated and located in the state of Oklahoma, which is actually located at 5609 Southeast 67th Street in Oklahoma City, 73135. Here is a Google map of the SDU in Oklahoma that is owned by Systems and Methods Incorporated. So I found some information on the address. It says here that it's categorized under business services that are unclassified. And it says that these records show that it was established in 2012, which was the same year that Systems and Methods Incorporated contracted with the state of Oklahoma, which also says that their current estimates show this company has an annual revenue of $2.5 to $5 million, and shows that the number of employees at this establishment is approximately 1 to 4. So you have 1 to 4 people who are processing every payment in the state of Oklahoma coming from child support payments. So by going over this information, we have exposed the Oklahoma Centralized Support Registry as the SDU, which is actually owned and operated and employed with Systems and Methods Incorporated. We have validated that Systems and Methods Incorporated is a private company. This is clearly proven not to be a state agency, therefore the employees that work here are not employees of the state. Some of these people don't even know who they are working for, while most are aware and commit to acting under color of law anyways. So let's see what happens when I confront someone who is working at the SDU here in Oklahoma, which is also known as the Oklahoma Central Support Registry, but is actually owned and operated by Systems and Methods Incorporated. So now let's see what their response is when I let them know that they are not employees of the state of Oklahoma and that the business that they work for is actually Systems and Methods Incorporated.
Can I ask you another question?
All right, hold on just a second.
Okay.
Sure can.
Are you an employee of the SDU?
I work for Child Support Services.
Well, I mean, like, are you a state employee or are you an employee of Systems and Methods Incorporated?
Yes, I am a state employee.
Oh, you're a state employee?
Yes, I am.
Well, because the reason why I asked is because on the contract it says the Systems and Methods is the owner and the operator of the SDU and that they employ their employees there. So I was kind of wondering if you were with them or are you part of the state?
I'm part of the state.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to clear that up.
This particular number handles child support services across the entire state of Oklahoma with, and we reach out to all the local offices regarding whatever information we can get.
So is everybody at the child support agency a state, so you guys employed with the state of Oklahoma?
Yes. Yes, it's Oklahoma Child Support Services. It's an agency that's under Oklahoma DHS, and everybody, to my knowledge, unless they got some contracts out, everybody is a state employee.
Yeah, I mean, well, the reason why I say that is because that the contract between systems like Methods Incorporated, they're a supplier of child support services, so child support services aren't in the state of Oklahoma. And but this is written in federal law, the child support agency is a single and separate unit from the state of Oklahoma. So technically, by law, you guys wouldn't be employees of Oklahoma. You guys are employees of SMI. And it's a debt collection agency. You guys have been contracted with the state of Oklahoma since 2012?
Not that I'm aware of. Child Support Services is a division of DHS, Department of Human Services.
The child support agency that operates in the DHS building is single and separate from the state. It's like it's referred to as the 4D agency. And it's written in 45 CFR, subsection 305. It's like I'm just trying to get it straight because I know that when people are pretending to be the state when they're not a state employee is acting under federal law. And they're depriving my rights. So I'm just trying to get a clarification of what's going on here. So that way. And I figured if you work for the SDU, that I would ask you because that's who owns and operates the SDU is Systems and Methods Incorporated.
Okay, SDU may be a division within Child Support Services, but Child Support Services itself.
They come from SMI.
I'm sorry?
The Central Support Registry, but that's owned and operated and designed by SMI. And the employees.
That is a state agency. No,
that's a private corporation. It's written in federal guidelines, and it's on the website of SMI. So you guys have been contracted with a private company since 2012, and they're the supplier of child support services, and they do the payment processing for child support services here in Oklahoma. But you guys are not employees of Oklahoma.
Well, they may do payment processing, but Child Support Services is an agency up under the Department of Human Services, state employees.
Well, then you guys are acting under federal law because federal guidelines state that you guys are not of the state.
I have no idea what it is that you're referring to. I just know that I am a state employee. I am paid by the state.
So what we have learned here today is child support services is not services of the state of Oklahoma, and that they are actually services of Systems and Methods Incorporated. We also learned that the child support order that is told to us to be a court order and mandated by the state of Oklahoma is actually a personal responsibility contract that is actually voluntary and requires your free will and consent, but in order for it to be valid and in order for it to be enforceable. So, a great job, gang, because we unmasked the villain.
We did it, Scooby-Doo! We did it!
We did it?
But who is that?
This is the end of the mystery.
Yes, might have gotten away with it too. If it wasn't for these blasted kids and their dogs.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo!
Brought to you by and edited and produced by me, Tiny Drew Deal, with 4D Termination Incorporated. We are 4D Termination Incorporated, the non-custodial parents advocates, and we are here to empower non-custodial parents and strengthen families. So if you liked what you watched, go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe button to subscribe to this channel. And thank you for your support.